Hey everybody, welcome to the Amigo Gringo channel. Today the video is in English because it's not really for you Brazilians. It's for the 45 gringos who are about to arrive in São Paulo to attend my wedding to Danny on Saturday. Yes, I am getting married on Saturday. In fact, some of those gringos have already arrived. Check this out. Oh, look who's here. Thank you, Eric. Great that you're here. Eric, of course, speaks Portuguese, but most of them don't, so I need to teach some serious survival Portuguese. The basic greetings you need are just bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, okay? Bom dia works until like noon or maybe until lunchtime if you have lunch a little later. Boa tarde works until like 6 p.m. and boa noite works as both good evening greeting and good night, like have a good night. But the great thing about these words, they all start with the word good, either the masculine word bom or the feminine word boa, is that you can add these words to just about anything in Portuguese and have a sort of goodbye. So for example, if you get out of an Uber, you could say bom trabalho to the Uber driver, have a good rest of the work day. Okay, it literally means just good work. If you're coming with us to Rio after the wedding, it's very common to say, if someone is going to the beach, boa praia, have a good time at the beach. I mean, it really works with almost anything. When I had my brain surgery a couple years ago, people did write in and say, boa cirurgia, like, have a good operation. But what they really mean is, I hope the operation goes smoothly. So here's me trying with Danny earlier this morning. Oh, Danny, bom sofá.
That's too much.
Boa leitura?
That works.
Okay, there are some limits, as you could see. Bom sofá doesn't really work. By the way, if you don't know if a word is masculine or feminine, it doesn't really matter. If you just say bom in front of anything, Brazilians will appreciate it. Another great one, which is a little hard to figure out the pronunciation of, is bon appetite. That is literally how the Brazilians pronounce bon appetit, and it's very common. Okay, many of you are arriving on Friday, and there is a term in Portuguese, a very informal term for saying like TGIF, thank God it's Friday. It's very common, and it is sextou. And that is because sexta-feira is Friday, and sextou is essentially Friday. And if you say that to people, they'll probably think it's funny. Okay, now we move on to common interactions that you're almost definitely gonna have in stores or restaurants or supermarkets. And I filmed this in the lunch place near my house, which is a great like buffet style lunch. If you are here on weekdays, lots of lunch places have this. You sort of pay by weight, or sometimes you pay one amount and you can have as much as you want. It's very, very common. Anyway, I went up to pay, and this is what the guy asks. Okay. Crédito. Aproxima. The two phrases you are always going to hear are crédito ou débito. Very simple, credit card or debit card. And then he might ask aproxima, or they might say like aproximação. That means, is it a tap card? They're literally saying, does it approximate? Does it get closer to the machine? So then you want to say yes. How do you say yes in Portuguese? You might guess si. That's not quite right. The equivalent word in Portuguese is sim, but it's not sim or sim. It is sim. Basically, pretend you have a Spanish accent and say the word sing. It'll come out something like sing, and that's basically it. No is just nasalized, no, but you can also just go like this. This works pretty well here. Now, in some places, they might ask you a whole bunch of other questions. Like, I went to the supermarket earlier today, and they'll usually say to you something like, No, obrigado. CPF, CPF. That just is asking you kind of for like your social security number. Don't ask why. Just say no. This woman didn't say it at the time, but they might also say something like Nota Fiscal Paulista, which means like the official government issued receipt. That's also a no. The two things you might want to say sim to are sacolinha. That means a bag. They might charge a little extra, they might not, but a sacolinha is a bag. Por favor. She also asked if I wanted my receipt, sua via. You could just say no to every question they ask, and you'll be fine unless for some reason they ask, do you like Brazil? And then you're going to be in trouble. Okay, here's one that the Brazilians make really complicated. If you order water in a restaurant, you're probably not going to get the tap water. You could, actually. Most people will just say agua, and watch me order water. Uma água, por favor.
Com gás ou sem gás?
Com gás. Com gás ou sem gás. Okay, you could probably figure it out. It's sparkling or still, with or without gas. A note for those coming with us to Rio, they're really likely to pronounce that more like com gás or sem gás. They have quite an accent there. But you'll figure it out in the context, and yes, I know they think we have an accent here in São Paulo. And everyone thinks I have an accent, so whatever. Then they keep asking questions, especially if you get it com gás. And the question is this.
Com gelo e limão?
Sim, pode ser. Gelo e limão. Ice and lime. Probably you want that. You might not. It's up to you. Sim or no. And then in many places, they're going to ask one more question. And this is when it just starts to be overkill, if you ask me, but...
Limão espremido ou limão em rodela?
Espremido.
Tá certo.
You want a slice of lime in rodelo, or do you want a squeezed bit of lime juice in there? Espremido, squeezed. I recommend squeezed. Of course, there is another alternative. You could just order Coca-Cola or cerveja. By the way, if you do order cerveja, you might want to consider, instead of what they call cerveja, which is bottled beer, chopp. That's the draft beer that Brazilians have. It's kind of a different system than ours. It's quite delicious, actually, and it comes out with a head more like a Guinness. If you need to call the waiter, Brazilians can get very, very creative when they call the waiter. They say stuff like, amigo, campeão, which means like, hey, good friend, hey, champ. But don't do that. It sort of depends on the context a little bit. So the safest words are just to say moço or moça. That means really means like young man or young woman. I guess I haven't gone over thank you yet. I think maybe many of you know that it is obrigado if you're a man, and obrigada if you are a woman, and that the gender refers to the person who's doing the thanking, not to the person who's being thanked. But an even better way to say it is muito obrigado or muito obrigada. That's the literal translation of much obliged. Muito obrigado. That's a little trick I used to use to remember it. Now, what if someone else says muito obrigado to you? You could just go with the Spanish equivalent and say not de nada, but de nada. But it's fun to say imagina, which means imagine, which I interpret as like, oh, thank you. Oh, imagine I wouldn't have done that. The final thing I want to talk about is this thing. It's called a comanda. They have them in lots of places. Bakeries almost always will have them. Restaurants sometimes have them. Bars will often have them. They take many forms, but here's a bakery that's in my neighborhood. You go in the bakery, they have this little machine at the entrance. You pull out a little comanda, and then you go in, and anything you order, whether you're sitting down at the counter or you're buying stuff from the little grocery area or from the little bakery counter, is you just give them your comanda, or you sometimes just say your number like I do here.
367.
And then magically when you leave the store, whether it's a minute later or 3 hours later, they just total it all up like this. You'll see the same thing in a lot of bars and restaurants. Sometimes it'll be on like paper. It's this fun places in Rio where they put the paper down and then they just check off every time they give you a beer. And believe me, they try to just keep giving you the beers. Anyway, that's it. I hope it was helpful. Brazilians, please give them more tips in the comments. Follow on Instagram if you're not invited to the wedding, and I'll put some stuff up there. But there will be a full wedding video in a week or a month or 2 months or something like that.
See everyone at the wedding.